I ordered a pickup at my local grocery store, which has designated parking for pickup orders. Someone who seemed to have a regular order decided to double park in the last two pickup spots remaining. Luckily, there was an opening just opposite of these two spots, so I parked there in the meantime, while waiting for a worker to be available. Eventually, after a worker finished filling up another customer's car, I notified them that, hey, I'm parked here close by as there's nothing else available. But since I wasn't in a designated spot, I seemed to perhaps get a lower priority than those linked to a designated numbered spot, so I had to wait much longer. After enough time, the person who double parked taking the last two designated spots came out of the store with their groceries and loaded up the car. As they prepared to leave, I decided why not have a little petty revenge to make them slightly inconvenienced. As they started their car, I decided to take out my phone and pretend to be busy with it while standing in a position that would prevent them from backing out of the parking spot. Not too close to the car, but not too far either. But also with my back slightly turned more toward their vehicle, so it would seem that I'm just oblivious to the vehicle and perhaps would continue walking any moment after looking at my phone. This went on for about 15 to 30 seconds when, then, I got a new lucky break. The grocery worker came to deliver my items, so I stopped the grocery worker kind in the middle of the parking lane, still with our backs turned to the vehicle, wanting to back out, and started to try to use my phone to verify the grocery items being delivered. Then, after another 15 to 30 seconds, when the worker noticed the reverse lights as the car tried to back out very slowly, the worker started moving the cart out of the way as I pretended to be oblivious for a little while longer to extend this petty revenge as long as possible. Very petty, I know, but why not? This happened to me about 2 years ago, but a former coworker just reminded me about it. I used to be a service manager at one of the biggest locations of a popular Mexican grill. I won't say which, but guess was $1.95 extra, and we were required to ask everyone if they were okay paying that price. One Sunday morning, our second busiest shift of the week, 2 of my line people called out, so we were struggling to get all of our prep done before opening at 11. We were just wrapping up when Karen came 10 minutes before opening, through the side door marked employees only with 15 preteen girls in town. My cook recognizes her as she regularly comes in during the dinner shift and is extremely abusive and cruel to all the Latino workers. Karen tells me they can order whatever they want, throws her credit card at me, and goes to sit down at a table and play on her phone. Now, I can't ring up her order without her standing there because of the company rules, and I am 30 weeks pregnant and just want to take my break. I waddled over to Karen's table to try and inform her of that when she literally flicks her hand at me to dismiss me. Not only have I been at the store since 7 and done 2 different people's jobs on top of my own, I have my son's head grinding against my pelvic bones and kicking me like crazy. I am in no mood. When I try to tell her again, she looks at me with what I can only describe as seething contempt and says, "What part of they can get whatever they want did you not understand? I don't care what you charge me as long as I get a receipt. Don't interrupt me again or I'll get you fired." Now, I never cry, but that almost got me. Motherhood is awesome, but pregnancy sucks. I finally managed to pick my jaw off the ground and stammer, "All right, ma'am. I'll ring up whatever they want and bring you a receipt." The girls were really nice and most of them ordered double meat and they all got bottled water and chips and guac. Every last one. My cashier and I are just vibrating with glee as we ring them up and watch the bill climb to like $250. I brought the bill to Karen and was pretty excited when she didn't immediately check it. I made my own food and told the cook to come get me when the show starts. I'm halfway done eating when I see him waving to the camera, howling with laughter, so I head up. Karen is foaming at the mouth, screaming for the manager, and when she sees that manager is me, she literally grinds her teeth and slaps her receipt on the table. She manages to choke out the word refund. The girls have all pretty much finished their food, so I inform her that I won't be doing that because I would lose my job for giving away that much critical inventory for free. Then I gently remind her that she told me twice that they could get anything as long as they got a receipt. She just keeps demanding a refund and calling me stupid and fat, again, pregnant. At this point, her screaming is holding up the very long line and customers are shouting at her to just leave. That's when she pushed me, very hard. My cashier caught me so I didn't fall down, but two of our regulars, who are police, saw it and immediately cuffed her. In this state, any use of physical force against a pregnant woman is classified as aggravated battery or something like that. I felt bad for the kids, and I was fine, so I kept telling them I didn't want to press charges, but they said that at that point it didn't matter because the woman had done it in front of on-duty officers, so she's getting arrested. They had to call the kids' parents to come get them because she was their church's youth leader. My general manager came in and let me go home with a full day's pay. She tried to take the case to trial, but they had video and like 20 witness statements, so she ended up taking a couple years probation or something. All because I did exactly what she told me to. This was 5 years ago. The company I used to work for was a metalworks company in the southeast of England. It had a 40-strong team of fabricators and fitters. We were hiring for an electrical engineer for some automation that we were branching into. I was also the guy training the engineers in what system they would be using. I got word from the supervisor that they had hired a guy and he was from Europe. They warned me to speak slowly and clearly as English wasn't his strong suit. I told them to check his documents to check he can actually indeed work. I was told to keep my nose out and do my job. When I had spoken to my jerk boss, he had a thick folder of pictures of electrical systems that he had built for home automation. I was a bit skeptical at first, especially as some of the pictures has stock photo plastered over them. I asked him to make sure he was sure about this, and if he had done the checks to make sure he was allowed to work, I was told the same thing: keep your nose out of it and do your job. A month or so goes by, and I think he understands how the system works and how it should be used with all of the safety systems in place. So we take him to a site and leave him to do his thing, while the rest of the guys get started on fitting security grill and railing all over the site. Me, being the sucker, I agreed to help the rest of the team with the fitting and finishing, leaving our new engineer all alone. Big mistake. All power on the site cuts out, generator kicks in. All the lights come on, and we discover smoke coming from the room where the fuse board is. An oh heck moment has just dawned on everyone. What Gav, European worker, had decided to do was try and wire in the system to a 3-phase board without checking the board, standard phase board right next to it. First, red flag. This made the situation worse, as he somehow blew the entire board up and had to explain to the electrician why he had to install a new board. The second red flag came in the shape of a van filled with immigration officers wanting to speak to Gav about him working. When he shouldn't have been, I asked if they had any proof of it being the same guy, and indeed it was. I pulled the boss to one side and told him the immigration officers want to talk to Gav and the boss. I could see the terror in his face and panic in his voice as he said, "Call the new guy in so I can get rid of him fast." I politely reminded him that he should have checked before hiring him. He looked defeated. The immigration officers decide to wait around the corner, and just as Gav walks in, the van pulls in and swoops onto the poor man and slaps him in cuffs. The officers then load him into the van and drive off. A few weeks pass by, and the boss thinks he is in the clear. A few weeks later, he is sent a letter telling him to make his way to the nearest home office building. To this day, I still don't know what they said to him, as he came back 2 hours later and closed up the workshop and never reopened, but it turns out he is still paying off a massive fine and couldn't afford to reopen. He was later arrested for tax evasion and fraud. Gav and I became friends, and the Home Office helped him become a British citizen with some help that they offered, so thankfully he wasn't deported from the country. In a previous job, we had a manager that would always criticize people for anything, but it really came to a head when they knew a lot more than this person on a subject. This came up in a meeting following a major health and safety breach. Long story short, a contractor drilled through asbestos, and as I was in charge of looking after the building when it happened, I was apparently the one at fault. For background, the contractor was told not to go near the area in question, but decided to ignore me anyway. I even had an email trail consisting of 35 messages to this extent. So, we're in the meeting together with the head of health and safety and representative of the HSA, and I came armed with my qualifications because I knew this manager would try to trip me up and twist it to look like I admit fault because he was known for being a manipulative jerk. Unrelated note, it ended up being his undoing later in his career. Earlier that year, my department was enrolled in a duty to manage course. This meant that we could visually inspect asbestos containing materials and report back on condition. This manager was also meant to be on the course but didn't show, and instead took his certificate of attendance anyway and told people he was certified. We start discussing the incident, and he starts by blaming me. Well, you told me that this was an accident, but what if the asbestos material was already damaged and you didn't report it? Cue malicious compliance. Here, manager, take a look at my most recent inspection. As you can see, this is dated last week and the photos show no visible damage. But that didn't stop him. Okay, that's great. But tell me, what makes you qualified to determine if this has been disturbed or not? At this point, I pass over my entire folder of qualifications. This includes my results from school, college, on-site training, and certs I've taken off my own back. He paused for a minute on my duty to manage certificate. Oh, yeah, we sat this on the same day. Actually, manager, you were nowhere to be seen that day, but still you display the certificate in your office. Can you explain that? Our head of H&S began frantically writing something in her notebook, and the HSA representative looked appalled at what he just heard. I was told to report to his office immediately after we convened this meeting, to which I asked, am I qualified enough to be there? Laughter erupted from H&S and HSE, and we never had that follow-up together. He later got fired for running his mouth to the MD and bad-mouthing the higher-ups. After a baseball game, we stopped at a McDonald's to get some food. We get our food and get into my dad's truck. A guy pulls in next to us and throws his door open, denting my dad's car. Well, my dad fixes dents for living, so no big deal really, except this guy kept trying to blame the wind. They start arguing, and this guy isn't even letting my dad just say, give me $60 and I'll fix it myself, and begins swearing at me and my brother. We were very young and not involved at all. So my dad nearly starts a fight with this guy, and he shouts, call the cops. They will defend me. So my dad does. Fast forward 15 minutes and an unmarked cop car pulls in. One cop gets out and starts asking questions. He gets both sides and asks me and my brother for what happened. We told him everything. He then started writing this guy a ticket. In our earshot, we hear the guy say, I freaking hate cops, and he then flips off the officer. My dad tells the cop who was busy writing something down, but the officer didn't see it, so no crime regarding this. Except the second cop who saw it all takes his cuffs out, ready to put them on this guy. The dude tries to pull away and run, but all three large dudes grab and tackle him until they get him in cuffs. He ended up getting charged for some stuff regarding minors, resisting arrest, and a few others. Probably a couple days in the slammer and a good couple $100 in fines. Edit. When he was getting ticketed, he apparently made some kind of threat towards the officer citing him, so that also made his crime much more punishable.